Hello guys, yeah, welcome back. This is history of psychological tests. Yes, is is going to be wow, right? Okay, I'm going to give it a try because even Anastasia Anobina, right, in 1997 said that the history of psychological tests is lost in antiquity. So you may consult several literatures and you are seeing different histories, and there are several people that had their contributions. So, like I always say, whenever you talk about history of an history, anything, we're talking a phenomenon, we're talking about the people that contributed to the emergence of that whatever. And today we're talking about psychological tests. So a person that started this, we remember even in the Bible, we've seen Gideon and his army, and they have to lap on the water to drink to select those who are ready and indeed qualified to go to the war, right? That is, by the way, about 200 BC in China. Yes, they have been having what they call China Imperial examination system. Yes, they use it like checking in the education system. They check their physical skills. Yes, physical and their intellectual skills. They call it their imperial exam system. Then from there we understand in the 1800, that is what we call the brass instrument era, right? That is when we move from subjectivity to objectivism in 1800, right? Then they used those instruments also to check for mental retardation in those days in 1838, for example. Yes. Then at 1839, people rejected, that is through this assessment, they were able to reject that these things are not curable. You know, at a point they say it's not curable and everything, but due to this ability to check for mental retardation and everything, they started checking a lot of things. Then in 1948 or 1848, sorry, they migrated to muscle relaxation, muscle training, all of those things, physical attributes, and this was done in America. This is when institutions in America started all of those things and training for muscle training and all those assessments. Then 1879, this rings a bell. Wilhelm Wundt in his Leipzig German laboratory, where he tested for time reaction and everything using his introspections and everything. Then Francis Galton, an English biologist, right, had a very big contribution also. Yes, he, you know, when you talk about Francis Galton, you're talking about his anthropomorphic laboratory. Yes, this is the first person that discussed the need to be keeping people's hereditary measures or data of their measures. Yes, that is him. You know, he was heavy. In fact, he's a cousin to Charles Darwin. Yes, so he was also a biologist and very influenced by those things, and he continued and he advised that schools should have this place where they keep this data about people's hereditary and biological features. That is in 1884, right? He's in 1884 he built his anthropomorphic what do you call it, laboratory, or you call it, sorry, anthropometric laboratory. Yes, it's metric. Yeah, so things we measure there, you know, people's traits. Yes, your keenness of hearing, your vision, your muscle, keenness of vision, keenness of hearing, your muscle capabilities, your muscle strength and everything. Then example of his instruments, we talk about his whistle. The whistle is Galton's whistle is used to get the highest audible pitch of an individual, right? And then there is a bar for visual discrimination length. Gauting bar, we call it the Gauting bar for visual discrimination. Then Gauting whistle for highest audible pitch, yes. Then from there, in fact, he's the one that talk about questionnaire and all of those things, the statistical method of all of those things, right? Then from here we move to the early mental tests and everything. Now we are no more testing physiological like Wilhelm Wundt 79 or any physical attributes. Now we are moving near to mental. We are getting more psychological now, right? So this is the history. So it was people like James McIntyre in 1890 talked about his bad tests and laboratory, right? In fact, he was a former student of Wilhelm Wundt. Yes, it was him that started all these modern movements about and laboratory. You will understand that Wilhelm Wundt was interested in a lot of things about the geographic or the nomothetic aspect of human being, how we are created and everything, but he went more about the geographic aspect. But noteworthy is that he's the one that started this modern laboratory movement or about in 1890, where mental test was first used and everything. And so, and remember, he was doing his own tests also with the sensory tests and everything, right? But with more complex tests. Then we have other names like Krippling 1895. We have Ebbinghaus 1897 with his arithmetic assessment and everything. Then from there we moved to intelligent tests, and once we mentioned that, we remember Alfred Binet 1901. Alfred Binet 1901 in France, where he was called upon to check the mental situations that is for public instructions on students and everything. That was in 1905, Alfred Binet, and then he did that and resulted to, with his friend, they invented the intelligent test we call the Simon Binet test, and from there it's called, yes, Alfred Binet test, the same. Then from there, we all know that this instrument checked comprehension, abstract reasoning, and every other thing, but it's initially meant for students with some learning difficulties. And later, in 1908, the second test, and then in fact they increased it. That is, it was normed using 300 students or 300 children, if I should use that word. Yes, and these are normal children, not ones with mental retardation, between about 13 years. Yes, from 3 to 13 years, and that is it. And that was in that time that the team moved from mental level to mental age. Instead of checking mental level, they check for mental stage. Then in 1911, more instruments or more items, was added to the Alfred Binet or Simon Binet test. That was in 1911, and at this point, it's no longer for children. We could access it also to adults, and then other revisions continued. Then Terman was the one that now took it to America and reviewed it, and it became the one we called the Stanford Binet test as today. And this is other contribution we should remember also is in 1945 during the World War, when we are talking about Robert Hicks alpha test and beta test. So this is the little contributions we can try to highlight and remember in response to the history of psychological instruments or psychological testing. Yes, And please, in case in the exam you are asked not the history but to talk about some names, I want to mention the names you may be expecting in the exam. Like I've talked about Francis Galton, an English biologist. He was responsible for launching the test movement. Yes, he was interested in human heredity and all of those things, and he developed several characteristics. Even he was the one that checked the difference between this person and the other person, how is this person related to the other person, and all of those things. And we talked about his measures, sensory measures and everything. His bar, yes, Galton bar for visual keenness or anything, yes, or visual differencing. Then he introduced these psychometrics or anthropometric this thing in education. Even his whistle for highest audible pitch and everything. So they call it anthropometric information. Yes, and then 1884, like we talked about the anthropometric lab. That is when he talked about his international exhibitions. Yes, international exhibition 1904 and 1984. People can just pay 3 pence. Yes, 3 pence, or should I use penny? 3 pence, and they measured of their test of keenness and every other thing. They will be tested of their keenness, their audible pitch, their visual keenness, like I said. Yes, okay. So he developed even other tests that can be used in his lab. Yes. So another name I would want us to look at is Alfred Binet, which I've mentioned, appointed by the French Minister for Public Relations in Education. Yes, to mentally retarded students. He was the one that was appointed, yes, by French Minister for Public Instructions, right? He was the one told to do that among the students, to discover children with mental retardations, right? Yes, he collaborated with Simon and developed the first Simon Binet tests, the 1905 scale. Yes. Then what again about him? With 30 items, that's at the 1905, right? Yes. What again? What again? What again about Alfred Binet? So 1908, more items were added, up to 300, and from mental level went to mental age, right? And performance tests and everything. You know, they did it with normal children, and revised in 1911. We can now take it to adults. I'm trying to highlight some things. And judgment, reasoning, comprehension, abstract reasoning can be measured with that at that point. From Stanford Binet test, this time by Terman. Terman again was the one that took it to America, Stanford University, and it was converted and now called the Stanford Binet test. So this is the size and the little I can contribute to the history of psychological testing. And God bless you and thank you. And please remember to subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much.